High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry.
What's up, everyone? We are live on WinsDay, and we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. We've got Instagram and X going, and I'm in a different location. I was literally like, as that video was playing, still trying to like figure out my setup here, but I'm at the Seattle Founders Capital Summit, and all these founders were just making their pitches for some money, some funding. It was so fun to watch. And Reveting has been live streaming the event. So, you know, we've got this awesome camera we're walking around with, get to capture all the speakers. And I literally just spoke and then rushed in here. So I got to speak about what to do after you get the funding. And it was all about visibility, LinkedIn, going live, and it was awesome. So I'm fired up, excited to be here. We have some awesome guests. One of them who I've been lucky enough to work with before, and you know, she's also got an awesome SaaS that we get to tell you about. And Javier, we're gonna bring them both in. We've got Javier and Taja. Let's bring them on screen, Layla. Hey, Taja.
Hello, hello.
Hey there.
Hello, Javier. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. This is exciting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And in good old-fashioned WinsDay style, we want to learn the full life story of you. So could you tell us about you? And we could all go look at your LinkedIn, which everyone watching, if you're here, let us know you're here. Put something in the chat, because otherwise we don't know you're here. Let us know what industry you're in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And then go search and follow Taja. And then go search and follow Javier. And get to know their resume. And as you do that, Taja, could you fill in the gaps between the resume of the full life story from birth to what brought you to now in 2 minutes?
Wow, in 2 minutes. Okay. Well, born and raised in Indiana, you'll find that on my LinkedIn, but I am the eldest child of two. And so most female founders, I'm finding out, oftentimes are the eldest sister or daughter in the group, and so that definitely is I. But I'm very competitive, highly competitively driven, played in some sports, didn't get to play obviously at a professional level, but that really was what motivated me in my career and my advancement in my career, both in the corporate setting, in media over time, definitely in my sales roles that I've played in media, and working with various founders and business owners in being able to convert their marketing into sales, which has become a passion of mine, obviously. But then also leading through as I've been a consultant and working alongside of those founders as well. So helping them to have that competitive advantage so that they can be seen and heard in the marketplaces that they represent. And then most recently, in my development now of a SaaS platform that expresses that as well with OpsIQ. So I think the competitive drive is what sets me apart, makes me a little different. You know, I thought I was going to be the next Jane Pauley or Oprah Winfrey in media, but I will find my home now as hopefully being the Oprah Winfrey of the tech world. So that's a little bit about me.
Heck yeah, I love that. And so, yeah, it really is. And I'd never heard that like the oldest sister tends to be a founder, because funny thing, I'm the youngest of 5 and I'm a founder, so I must be the anomaly.
No, it works.
Love that. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Taja. Hey, Alyssa, or wait, no, is it Alicia? Or wait, no.
Lisa.
This
Yes.
is your person. Yeah, she's connected with you,
I'm so glad
Elisa.
to have her. She'll check me here and make sure that I'm speaking correctly. So she's definitely a guru in her own right.
Yes, Elisa, thank you for being here. Anyone else tuning in, let us know you're here. Be part of the conversation. Javier, we want to learn more about you. Could you tell us your full life story?
Yeah, so I was actually born in New Hampshire, in Dover, New Hampshire, and then moved to Tennessee when I was about 8 or 9, and graduated from there, and then ended up moving to Colorado to get away from my parents, because whenever you're 18, you want to rebel and get away from them. And so I moved to Colorado and ended up going to University of Colorado at Boulder. And basically, I've always had kind of this passion with, starting my own kind of company, my own business. Before all that kind of happened, kind of jumped a little forward too much. I was very into martial arts. So I kind of, got everything started in the martial arts and fitness industry. And so what happened is I started competing in tournaments and all that stuff. I was competing professionally all over the country. I ended up winning a world title back in 2000 or 2000. Wow. So I was a very well-rounded in that kind of area. And my passion was to open a martial arts studio. So I ended up doing that in 2008 and essentially was able to run that successfully for just over 10 years and ended up having a successful exit, which is very difficult to do when you're doing a business that's kind of wrapped around yourself. So exited in 2018. I was fortunate to do it right before COVID. And then started getting into corporate, started getting into more of the in-house, and was taking a lot of my stuff into different industries where I was reinventing myself, if you will, because martial arts and the small business was kind of my world, and was just finding great success. Found my path through just basically through sales into becoming eventually a full-time CMO. And then from there going into fractional CMO as well too. So my journey to where I was, like I would say what my drive is that I'm also just as competitive and have always kind of found a way to just build and can continue to kind of grow from there. So that's kind of what the highlight reel for me for the over the past several years.
Ah, yeah, I can relate to that story. I went from full-time CMO to fractional CMO too. Interesting story. Yes, thank you both for sharing. Yeah. So anyway, well, let's get into our first topic. Now we know your backgrounds. We're going to be knowing where you're coming from when we get into it. But also everyone's hopefully checked out your LinkedIn. They're following you by now, and they know your expertise. And Taja, you have a lot of expertise. I mean, you're a sales expert, you're operations expert, you're tech expert. But let's talk turning marketing into sales conversions. Could you kick us off there?
This is one of my ultimate favorite topics. Just even yesterday, I was on a cohort and just, again, revisiting what it really takes to pull in the marketing and really pull it through to conversion in sales. So I'm grateful that Lisa led that. So she definitely can speak to it as well. But what is really important here to understand is a couple of things, right? You got to know where your market is, who that is, right? And what is your ideal customer profile. Really being able to be very specific in who that consumer is. You need to know exactly what their pain points are and how to really be able to express to that in a statement, a very defined statement, right, that really catches their eye and gets their attention and engages them in the way to getting to that next step. So whatever that call to action really is, right? So it could be a form fill. Yeah, it could be a request for a meeting. It could come in the way, with us at OpsIQ, it's about an assessment, taking an assessment. So when you are able to really pull it through and getting to that call to action, or really being able to see where they have been engaging with you in their journey, they might still be in the form of researching you and getting to know you a little bit better before they take that call to action. But how do you keep them engaged and in that process, right, to whatever that call to action is? And then it doesn't just stop at that call to action. We know that, right? So once the call to action happens, right, and you've gotten them to that meeting of discovery, and they're making considerations here, right? How do you really then continue to extend what it is that you bring in value proposition to them, what they can anticipate to be the outcome should they come and buy your products, good or service, whatever that is that you have, is the ultimate. But I oftentimes say it doesn't stop there, because if you just become a one-track pony, if you will, and you're selling them just the one-time opportunity, you could miss what is an upsell or a renewal. So how do you really keep them engaged in that part of the process in a full cycle of sale, right? For that renewal, for that upsell. So it's encouraging to get what has been their process in utilizing your good or service, and making sure that you're surveying them, you're asking the right questions, you're being available to them, however that looks. If it's a tech platform, that you're expressing that in multiple surveys throughout the year. If you have a good or an actual product, that you lend some space for them to be able to give you what that is. But the whole process, starting from that marketing side all the way through to a renewal, through a further commitment, is a full cycle. It is not just the one time that you're able to touch them. So that is important to recognize, that it's a multiple dynamic over the whole process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. I think, the two things that stuck out to me when you first started talking was pain, emotion. So important. You really do have to, I don't want to say trigger them, but you got to get something moving in them emotionally to make them want to think, right? And then the other thing you said was value prop. So simple, but I feel like so many people just forget that. Like, what is your value prop? They have this pain. What's the value they're going to get from it? I love that, Taja. What's your take on all this, Javier?
Going along with, she covered a lot that I 100% agree with. And, but going along with that, like where I kind of see some of the stuff is, there's Donald Miller. Most marketers are very familiar with him. He, very famous for building a story brand. And I love how his approach is about finding that pain and then making people feel what it's like whenever you continue down this path of pain. And like, this is what your life is going to be like if you don't have this solution, if you don't have this tool. And then here's what your life could be like if you actually implement this solution or tool into your business. And that's something that's really important, is that you've got to kind of distinguish on, like, you can continue your own path, but you could probably be running out of runway. You could be, losing on accounts and deals. Like, there's a lot of things, but you've got to lay that out explicitly. So I do believe that the value props are important, but you've also got to see what loss is like, and then what wins are going to look like. So if you don't know what loss is like and you don't make them feel that, no one's going to buy anything. So, we all buy based off of emotions. We don't buy based off of like, oh, it's going to fix this. There's an emotion. I mean, like it's like those infomercials. I never thought that, egg sticking to my pan was ruining my life. And all of a sudden I need to buy like a whole 5-set pan of, new stickless pans or whatever. But that's the idea that you need to kind of present. The other piece I would also kind of add to this is that marketing sales have to be working together as unison. You are tied to the hip. And this is where marketing is really got to start learning how to talk to sales and get that feedback loop and be in those conversations, listen to calls, listen to the sales team and see what they're saying so that they can start bringing in the right types of deals to the top of the funnel, so that that journey becomes even better and better and better throughout the process, so that when renewal comes, it's not going to be pulling teeth. It's going to be like, yeah, this was an amazing experience. Well, it's because you were the perfect customer. You hit every check mark that we look for a customer. So of course renewal is going to be easy for us because you've experienced what we want to deliver. And so those are some of the things I would also add to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's your take on that, Taja?
I have to jump in and just say, I'm so glad Javier brought up the fact that the team dynamic between what is marketing and sales, it is so closely held together as a family unit, as I would put it, that you have to make certain that, also that the sales side understands that journey in marketing, right?
Yes.
Because, 90% of the time, those that are looking to your services or goods will not reach out to that salesperson immediately. They're still sourcing and finding and fact finding to know that what you 100%. Are offering them actually is the thing they need, right? So that marketing component of it is very important, that sales understands it, as well as vice versa, as Javier stated.
Yeah, I mean, like to go out. I love that you're saying that, because that's something that we battle in the marketing side, is that, hey, not everyone's going to convert when they see your ad. Not everyone's going to convert when they see your website. You still have to build trust, and those trust signals are going to be from different things, whether it's from reviews, whether it's going to be going to the website or LinkedIn profile, seeing if the CEO or founder is very active and social. Because if they're hiding behind a screen, like, they're going to be thinking like, I don't know if this is the company I want to do business with. There's all these signals that they're going to be researching, and that is critical to basically kind of pushing that buyer down that cycle a lot easier. And so when sales understands that not everything's going to convert, because in their mind is like, I can close anything. Well, yeah, like you have to be that arrogant and cocky to think that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like, that's why you're in sales, and so you have to have that thought process. But at the same time, you also have to be realistic, And so I think that's where marketing comes in and be like, hey, yes, I know you can close everything, but if I gave you better opportunities, you'll probably have a higher close rate. And then you're going to be even happier because we're getting the right people in the funnel.
Yeah, and what's really great when marketing can sell it before the salesperson even gets on the phone. Like, your content is that good.
Yes.
Their pain is, they're coming to you and they want to buy. So then in that case, those situations, I do really like to actually do exactly what you were saying earlier, Javier, like on a sales call, but do it on a sales call where you're like, so what happens if you do nothing? And have them explain that to me. And before that, I guess, and how does that affect your business? How does it affect you? How does that affect your family?
Yep.
And then you're really getting into the emotion. And then they're like, okay, yeah, now I'm really ready. I want to sign up. And sometimes when you get too many inbound, you've got to filter out. Like that's sort of where we are. We get too much junk coming in. We don't want to talk to everyone. And everyone who thinks they want to be on a sales call with us, I don't know if we're actually going to be able to help you, and that's going to put us in a bad situation. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, that's what you made me think of.
I mean, it's sales. Sales is selling verbally, talking on the phone, and then marketing is selling by text, by your screen. And so they're both creating emotions in different ways. If you're both able to create emotions that they can feel from the screen and on the phone, then all of a sudden you've got this like really winning dynamic, and that's what you're trying to create.
Yep, exactly. And we do have to communicate. What do you think? So everyone says we need sales marketing alignment. Okay, everyone knows that, but it's always so hard. And as a marketer, I always felt like people are like, hey, marketer, go on those sales calls. It's like, I can't get access to them. They're not inviting me on the calls. I don't know when they are. So like, I would want to say, hey, sales team, invite your marketers to the sales meeting. Invite your marketers to the Zoom call to listen in. And then marketers, just be a fly on the wall. You don't need to participate, just listen in. But when you're there in real life, it's different than listening to the recording, I think, because you get the real, I don't know, you're really in there with them. You feel it a little differently than just looking through patterns in transcripts and, watching whatever gong calls. But yeah, what to you guys is marketing alignment? It's communication. It's really understanding each other's needs. But what else is it really?
I think when you put the focus and keep it on who that ideal customer profile is and their journey and how they interact and engage, it takes the barrier down, I believe, on both sides, right? Because you're really focused in on who it is we need to talk to, how do we qualify them, right? So that when that funnel does get full, right, there's still a vetting process that probably is maintained by the marketing side in some regards, right, before it's passed off. But, that you really are working together to clearly define that and understand their psyche and how they engage. I think that is the biggest opportunity that gets lost, because everybody is wanting to function in their task, if you will, versus really being able to stay focused on who it is and why you are trying to attract them and how you go about talking to them.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I would like, what made me successful with our sales and marketing alignment in one of my last in-house roles was we spoke the same language. So we no longer went by feelings. We were like, okay, if we're going to go by feelings, like that's hard to quantify. I can't go take that to the CEO and quantify like Tom's not feeling good today. He thinks the leads are bad. Like, it's a very hard thing to kind of like pitch to the CEO. But whenever you start having like, hey, this is how we're going to communicate with her. These are going to be metrics that we're going to be tracking. You're in charge of how you move them through the pipeline. You determine what's qualified at these different stages. And then you tell me from the metrics on the conversion stages on what's working, not working. And so that helped us a lot as far as having like alignment. It was no longer people pointing fingers. It was like, all right, this is our conversation. We do this every couple of weeks, or we do this every month, or whatever it is. We review stats and numbers, and we just kind of go over like what was different. Like, we didn't change ads, we didn't change this, we didn't change that. Was it just like the leads were a little different? And so that's where we can start kind of adding a little color to it, but we all spoke the same language, so that at the end of the day, it was no longer pointing fingers. It was like, nothing's changed. So therefore we just got to make sure we're on our A game, you know?
Definitely. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I love that because I would say, in addition to that, speaking that same language and sharing the same analytics is working within the same systems, right? Yep. Like ensuring that everybody has exposure and, transparency to where all of that data lives and resides, so that everybody can see it in real time. And understand it is a good point, Javier. I love that.
Yeah, no, this is good. I like this 1-2 combo. This is awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I love having two guests on.
Take it on the road show. There we go.
Let's do it. Get the road mic. We'll do a road show. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our next topic, because I can talk sales and marketing alignment probably all day. Okay, marketing accountability for revenue growth. All right, Javier, I believe this is your topic. Could you kick us off here?
Yeah. So, I feel as though there's times where there are marketing leaders that don't kind of tie themselves to some sort of revenue growth. And quite frankly, in order to grow a company, you need to be making more money. And marketing leaders should not necessarily own revenue, but they should be influencing revenue in different ways. And so it's not just about brand, but you also need to create that demand, and you need to do it together. And in order to create that revenue growth and create that accountability, this is where I really believe that the CMO and the CRO have to be tied to the hip. They have to be literally going together and creating that right go-to-market motion together. This is a team event, okay? One team is playing offense, one team is playing defense, but the only way to win is that we're both winning together on whatever we're doing. And so what I really love to see is that when we're creating this accountability, it's more of like, okay, sales, what do we need to hit as far as our numbers? And we already know what those numbers are. And you start working yourself backwards. Like, all right, if we need to hit, let's say $1 million in this quarter, then what we need to do is we need to start thinking about how do we start stacking the pipeline on the other side to get that $1 million conversion. And I know sometimes whenever you're a founder or a startup, it's hard to create that. And so you have to take the onus of saying, hey, for a quarter, we're going to be testing this and seeing how much pipeline we need to create at the top of the funnel in order for everything to kind of start trickling down to where we get $1 million at the end of the quarter. And we're going to see how it does. And we might have to pivot and adjust part of our strategies. And when you're doing that, you're laying out 2 or 3 strategies that you believe are going to be successful. You're like, hey, we're going to make some bets here. And the reason we're going to make these bets is that this is going to be influencing revenue in this way by doing this strategy. This is going to be influencing revenue by this way by doing this strategy. But every strategy is tied to revenue. It's not tied to vanity metrics. I'm not saying those are bad things, but they're tied to revenue. And as you're tying everything to revenue, then you have better conversations with the leadership team, better conversations with their CEO and CFO. But what's going to happen there is as you're building out the strategy, then you're going to have like tactics and within those different strategies. And so how I look at this is that you've got your goal, you got your $1 million goal for the quarter, if you will. And then you've got your strategy. Maybe one strategy is going to be running ads on LinkedIn to try to start building the top of the funnel. And it's probably a conversion type ad. And then maybe another strategy might be using email strategies where you're building kind of more folks into your lake or your pond, and you're trying and testing different types of strategies from there. And then you've got different tactics within those pieces, and you start measuring those to kind of get you guys aligned in that direction. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were just talking about earlier. It's that sales and marketing alignment where you literally sit down with the CRO and you're talking about revenue and what the goals are and how do we get there, so that you can just work yourself backwards and then just know like, all right, we need to have X amount in the pipeline. And we need to know that from leads to MQL, the conversion needs to be this. And from MQL to SQL, the conversion needs to be this. And from SQL to this needs to be that. You might miss the first quarter, but you'll find a trend. And then maybe second quarter, you're like, all right, we're going to get this dialed in. And then you're going to start seeing that trend line. And then all of a sudden you'll start seeing some successes. This is exactly what we did whenever we were building out our pipeline, is that we knew how to get to our revenue numbers because we knew that X amount of leads was going to generate X amount of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you reminded everyone too of: goal, strategy, tactics. Many times I feel like, especially in marketing, people want to start with the tactic.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, but they just want to jump right into cold email or something, or like social media. So like, what do you do with that? You know, how do you get people to get focused on that goal when they're like, hey, we need this? And it's like, well, why do you need that? Like, how do you address that, Javier?
I would put guardrails on everything. So as you're building this strategy out, it's guardrails. Like, this is what the guardrails are. We're not going to go to every social media channel because yes, they could work, but we're going to focus on one. We're going to focus on LinkedIn, or we're going to focus on meta ads. It doesn't matter, but you've got to create guardrails that everyone agrees on, from the CEO down to everybody else in the team. And the reason that you create those guardrails is that now no longer are we saying, but these people are doing this. Doesn't matter. That's not part of the strategy for the quarter. We're focused on this, and these are the guardrails. We will evaluate everything. Does this mean that you don't pivot? No, it doesn't mean that you don't pivot. It just simply means that in order to get some traction, you need to have these guardrails in order to keep you like aligned. And then you can actually truly test on like what's successful and what's not success. And the great thing about this is that if you know something's not working, the next quarter, guess what? Don't do it. You know, and so you'll see some of these signals show up very early. And this is exactly how I like to align marketing and sales to hit that revenue goal, is that we all know what the revenue number is. We all know what the guardrails are. We're not going to deviate from this. So if the CEO is like, well, we should be on TikTok. Nope. We already all agreed on this on Q1. We all agreed on this. So therefore, we're not, deviating from this, because that's going to be creating what I like to call my enemies, random acts of marketing. And that is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
I love this part of the conversation when it comes to accountability. And I think the other side of the coin is really, what is the cost for the client acquisition? Like really being able to understand, there's one side of it of generating the revenue. There's the other side of it of the expense associated with the marketing, and making certain that, that you guys really have a strong balance in what that cost to acquiring that client really is in any of the various platforms that you're going to use. What does that really look like? And is it worth it to the CEO, to that founder, for what will be the return on that investment? It's an investment, and you have to treat it as such.
Yes, love it, love it.
Yeah, you do. And it starts to add up. And that's one of the big reasons too, like the goal, the strategy. And I don't know about you, Javier, but like, what do you do about this? So when you said quarter, like when I'm starting a new tactic, and part of the strategy, I like to include the timeline we're going to give it. We're going to give it 6 months. We're going to give it a year. Like, really, can we prove this in 6? Marketing takes time. I mean, I've been posting every day on LinkedIn for like 4 years now. And just in the last year, I'm really starting to feel the inbound and the DMs and stuff like that. It really takes time, and different things take time. So how do you go about picking out like that timeline, or just picking a quarter? Because it's really hard to try anything new in 3 months, in my opinion, in marketing. Yeah. So
this sounds a little crazy, but I don't tend to build out strategies beyond 90 days. And especially now with how things are going with AI. Like I was talking to a founder that he's like, we have a 5-year plan already built out. I was like, are you kidding? So
wow.
I would never do that in my life. Does this mean that I'm not prepared? No, it just means that I'm willing to actually make pivots when things aren't working well. And so how I like to look at it is like, hey, we have an overall annual goal. The end of the goal year is going to be this. We get that. We believe that these are some of the strategies that can get us to that, and we're going to follow that. And then we're going to implement some of these in Q1. And if we have a little traction, we're going to push into Q2. You've got to kind of test the boundaries. Like, for instance, as an example is, if you're going to do podcasting as a strategy, you definitely don't do it for a quarter, because we all know that podcasting is a great long game play. And so you're going to invest into the future in that. But if you're going to do, say, demand gen and you're going to be running ads on Meta, then that's something you can definitely test in a quarter, because literally you can just turn up the dollars or turn down the dollars to see what's working, not working. You can change ads like today instantaneously. You can change copy. You can change landing pages. Like those are things that you can do instantaneously. So you've got to kind of build these in conjunction, if you will, side by side. So knowing that like, hey, this is going to be a long play, and what we see success is that when people, get on calls, they say, I heard about you on a podcast. Okay, that's a signal. Or if they came in through, an ad, that's an easy signal to track. And all you're going to say is like, we're only going to be looking at this as a signal, and then we're going to start seeing how it performs and it converts on the other side. And as long as you're tracking these things, it's fine. But as far as like timeline, I would say 3 to 6 months bare minimum, but you also have to be realistic, okay? If you're doing SEO, you're not going to get a ton of traction in 3 months, but you'll probably start seeing some stuff in 6 or 9 months,
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. It is tough. I really respect your 90-day plan. I think that's tough though, but I get it. Especially, I think my opinion on all of this is different with ads, because with ads, depending on how much you're spending, I mean, I've worked for companies that were spending $15,000 a month on ads, $9,000 a month on ads. Mm-hmm. You can't afford to let that run for 6 months when it's not working, so like, yeah, to me, ads are, and you can tweak ads, right? You might play with the messaging, you might play with the color, you might play with the audience, there's different things you can tweak there. And you can have a whole bunch of them running at the same time to see which ones perform the best. Yep. But what do you say about that with timing and ads versus like organic marketing?
It's going to go back to what Taja was saying about customer acquisition cost. And what does that look like? So if you've been running some other strategies and you know that your customer acquisition cost is, I'm going to use a random number, $1,000. Okay, and it's working, that becomes your baseline. So if you're going to run ads on Meta and your acquisition cost is above $1,000 and you've done, a couple of changes over the past 6 weeks and it's not moving the needle, then guess what? Meta's probably not the right kind of channel to be marketing in. And so again, like you got to go into this knowing that you've got a baseline and then you have to work, above or below that. I love to start off on an organic standpoint and kind of create more of like a CAC in that organic standpoint and say, okay, if our CAC is $1,000 for organic traffic, converting down the pipeline, including like, what it costs to pay our sales team, et cetera, then let's see what it looks like on Meta ads. Let's see what it looks like on LinkedIn ads. And if it's below $1,000, then all of a sudden we're playing the lottery here. It's like literally I could put $1 in this thing and I get $4 back, or I get $8 back, whatever that is. And it becomes like a scalable system. But it's a matter of just kind of looking at that. That's the KPI I focus on when I'm testing a new channel, because if it's above a certain number that I know I get on average, I'll never go, to another channel. I'll diversify a little bit, but I won't put all my eggs in one basket.
Mm. Yeah,
that's a very good point. I love that you brought that up about putting all your eggs in one basket, especially when you might be in startup mode or a new product launch or something like that. Is you really do have to do some of this A/B testing and seeing what platform will deliver the best for you in that. And I love that discipline for sure.
Yeah. It's you can't be tied to these things. You can't be married to everything. You just got to go in there agnostic to whatever it is. I don't care. Like I've told this to CEOs, I was like, I don't care if there's a purple elephant that makes us sell on our website. If a purple elephant gives us more leads and gives us more deals, we're putting purple elephants all over the website. And some of them are like, well, I don't like them. I don't care. It pays the revenue. It pays everyone's bills. And so we got to be really realistic on some of this stuff. And now that's an extreme example, but my point is that we can't be married to a lot of these approaches.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's another reason why you shouldn't start with the tactic. You should start up here at the goal. Like, what's your goal? Yep. Anyway, well, we've got 2 more really hot topics. I think one of them is about, is it about marketing metrics? I don't know. Oh yeah, key metrics for marketing performance. So we were just talking about CAC. Yeah, we're gonna get into this right after this brief message from Cherry Assistant.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM on Gulf High level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
Yes, be like Mike. And if you're listening to this on podcast, we're showing a menu of services on video right now, including but not limited to lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management assistance, and so much more. So scan that QR code, or if you're listening, just go to cherryassistant.com. Make sure you tell them that you heard about them from WinsDay for $250 off your first month with Cherry Assistant. So go check them out. And we've got one more brief message for you. We'll be right back.
At Reviting, we help B2B founders, executives, brands turn their live streaming into a real revenue channel. One live stream turns into a podcast. It turns into a social clip. It turns into email content like a newsletter and actual sales conversations. You get to have a lot of conversations with people when you have a podcast or a live stream like this. And if you want to be known, trusted, and remembered in your industry, without being online 24/7, worrying about your posting, this is what we do. Just head on over to reviting.com and let's build your show.
I want to give a quick testimonial for the Reviting team and Jesse. I was really nervous about doing lives. And so thanks to Jesse and her team, I've now been doing them for, I think, 7 or 8 months now. The other thing is they very much have helped me increase my reach and online presence. So thank you, Reviting and Jesse.
One of the problems that we struggle with is getting our brand out there. What Jesse and her team have been able to do for us is to take advantage of LinkedIn and the idea of going live on LinkedIn and using that platform to its fullest extent through the way they're able to take the live event and break it down into bite-sized posts. Your team shows up very organized. They were able to take what was limited in terms of how our brand shows up, but actually turn that into visualizations for the different shows, the video clips that are being taken, as well as the content within the posts themselves.
Jesse, I love what you and the team do. You make it so easy for me to get in, have a meaningful conversation with some amazing guests, and then watch the post-production. I've been picking up 50 followers a day just because that content is resonating so well. And I've had a number of people reach out to me who want to be guests on the show. So it's working across a lot of different channels for me, and I can't thank you enough.
Awesome. I always the testimonials always get my heart. I feel it so much. But anyway, let's get back to key metrics, CAC. And I got to say my favorite metric is CAC LTV ratio, because I feel like CAC can sometimes lead us astray. I've got one client, my former employer. I was a full-time CMO. I went fractional. They're still with me 3 years later. They have a strong lifetime value for me. And so, if I just looked at CAC, I'd be leaving out some of the information there. But anyway, Taja, could you kick us off on this key metrics conversation?
So I'm going to start with first, where do you find this information? Because I think that's very critical. Especially as a founder, most times you want to go straight to your financials and say, well, clearly it's not working because I don't have $1 in the bank. But that's not where you want to start, right? That's, in my book, I always tell people that's a lagging indicator of where you are. So, where are you pulling these metrics? I hope that you all have a strong CRM system in place that will allow for you to see what's happening in real time with your drip campaigns and the responses and the open rates and how long they're viewing your content or the message that you sent to them. That is one of the best places to go and reference that information, right? Number two, your Google Analytics, right? Like how often are they visiting the website? What content are they consuming on your website? Is very critical data points that you'll want to be able to have at your disposal as well. And oftentimes you can link those two together to really see in the breadth of that one consumer or prospect as well. So, but then depending on whatever platform that you're using, making sure that you're staying abreast of what are the deliverables in those platforms, I think is very critical data points of information for you to gain as well. And especially if you're looking at, as Javier has brought up, the MQL and how it transitions then over to your SQL. These are great ways of seeing it in real time. So for me, it's more about where you're being exposed to that information, and then how you are looking at it and analyzing it in a way that makes sense. And really, for lack of a better word, a storytelling scenario.
Love it. You covered a lot.
I muted myself, had to unmute myself. I'm curious, Taja, do you have any favorite tools that you use for all of this that you might suggest?
I'm going to say I'm not. So I am a big believer in a CRM, be it HubSpot, whatever system you use. But I also recognize, having been a former sales manager in my lifetime, it only will put out data that you put in there that is quality data.
Yeah.
Let's just start there. So, if you're not using quality data, if you're not inputting information in a timely fashion, the outputs are going to be just as bad as the inputs. That's first and foremost with any CRM. And so, I would start there. I've shared with you a little bit my experience, obviously, Google Analytics. But then, there's several other platforms that, based on what you're using in way of ad placement, I would suggest that you're always looking in and tapping in there. So if you're using LinkedIn, that you're going into your campaigns and seeing in real time the deliverables on those campaigns, which ones are working best for you versus the ones that still remain a little stagnant, building that information and understanding.
Yeah. Have either of you ever heard of ProfitWell? ProfitWell is a tool you can integrate with like your Stripe. Yeah, I've had good experiences with that. Maybe not now in the past, like not now, because if you've got revenue coming in from multiple places, Stripe, and then you've got direct, it's not going to get everything. But back when I worked for a SaaS platform and all the payment was coming through Stripe, ProfitWell could tell me my CAC, could tell me my lifetime value. It had all of that information. It was super helpful, because like even in HubSpot or any CRM, you got to still do the math. You got to go, like it's not just going to create the CAC for you and like give you your lifetime value in a chart. You got to go find the formula and do some math as a marketer. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I did that. But yeah, I don't know. Javier, do you know of any other tools that help with that?
Honestly, I was just going to say like good old fashioned Google Sheets. I know it sounds silly, but it goes back to what you were saying is that you're going to get probably 80% of the data that you need in HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using, but it's not going to give you all the data points that you are probably wanting to track at different points, because some of them are going to be leading indicators, some of them are going to be lagging indicators, kind of like what Taja was leading into. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're like, okay, this helps me get to this point, but this doesn't really give me everything. So I need to make sure I run a spreadsheet and do the calculations and track it every single month, so I can start seeing how this data is going to start reflecting the strategies that we're running. So, I mean, a CMO should be able to run very strong spreadsheets to make these calculations. It's part of the role. It's part of the job. It's not just brand and not just running ads, but you want to see how things are converting at different stages. You want to see other calculations. You want to, one of the things that you can't really get through an ad through like HubSpot is ROAS. Okay. Like you're not going to get that in HubSpot. Like you can get close to it, but if you're like, well, it's kind of this, and it's like this person saw the ad, but then the last click attribution was organic, and like, so you're going to have to make some ballpark estimates, and you have to say, hey, I'm okay giving up 10%, 15% of plus minus of what this really is. And we're going to use this for directional kind of purpose. And so this is kind of why I love using spreadsheets, because then you can make your own rules in there as opposed to being stuck to what the CRM says, like, this is how ROAS is calculated. Like, well, that's not how we do it in our company. So you're going to have to just know that there's going to be some tools that are amazing and get you 80, 90% of the way. And others are like, crap, this is not going to work. And you're just going to have to adjust.
Yeah, so true. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only CMO who was sitting there doing math by hand. The Google spreadsheet's brilliant. I don't know why I didn't think about that. Just drag the formula down.
Yeah.
No, this is good stuff. Well, Taja, is there anything else in terms of key metrics you might share with
Again,
us?
I'm not going to talk necessarily about the metrics, because that is, I'm not, I don't want to belittle this, but what is very key to me as a founder is how frequently I am reviewing and telling the story and understanding what it is that I am seeing. Oftentimes founders and CEOs go lacking that information, and I think it's critical that they step in and understand that. Even at the organic space of your LinkedIn, I'm shocked at times that founders don't know the engagement with their company pages on LinkedIn. They have no clue of what that means and how to utilize it at their best for their company dynamics. So being really dialed in at that founder level, I think, is critical, critically important.
I would even add to even looking at your personal profile as far as views and impressions, because quite frankly, like, Jesse, you said this at the very beginning, people buy from people. They're not buying from ABC Corporation. I mean, they're buying the service or product from there, but they're buying from those people. And so I think if you have a very strong founder that is very active in thought leadership and putting themselves out there, they should be looking at their impressions. They should be looking at their click-throughs. Like LinkedIn gives a lot of free data that is not available on a lot of other platforms. And it's amazing. And I quite frankly love it. And so, my impressions versus a founder's impressions are going to be quite different, especially if you're a salesperson. Your founder is going to probably have 2 or 3 times more impressions just because of their title versus an AE, So that should be part of the strategy, and using that as it's just kind of like a directional strategy. Like, hey, anytime our founder posts about this, we see an uptick in this. Interesting. And let's see what the impressions are like. Let's see what the comments are like. So those things are like silly metrics, but at the end of the day, if they lead to revenue, they're important.
It's really true. And it's the whole reason my company exists, really, is because we had to get the story from the founder out there. I mean, I was a full-time CMO and working for a data exchange platform. It was very complex, and I didn't know how to get this story out. But when the founder talked, it all made sense. So if I just put the camera on him, then I could put that out there, and that was what got the traction. So that was how this whole concept started. Was I didn't fully understand what we were doing, so I had to interview the founder. And man, other people didn't understand what we were doing either. So if your own CMO doesn't really fully understand what you're doing, other people might not understand what you're doing. So it's our job to simplify it. But the founder saying it versus the engineer or the sales guy is like night and day. Because that founder, we were talking about sales and marketing alignment up there. That founder is the seal of sales and marketing.
Yes.
The founder understands all the metrics. Yes. The founder is the story behind it. That's why I like to ask, what's your full life story from birth to what brought you to now? So people can connect with you. Well, you started this company for a reason, and people want to understand that reason. And that's really interesting. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on the founder brand. There's actually a book called Founder Brand by Dave Gerhardt. It's a yellow book, and I suggest everybody go read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, shall we get into our 4th topic?
Let's do it.
The $2 million lifecycle strategy that converts. Javier, kick us off.
So this is something that it's interesting, because when I explain the strategy to other individuals, they're like, well, it's just a drip campaign. I'm like, not really. So as you all probably know, lifecycle strategies is essentially going to be email, but what you're doing is you're using your email strategies in different ways. It's going to be maybe marketing emails. It's going to be a combination of different things. Most people only think marketing emails. And then the other part is that a lot of the times when they think marketing emails, they're thinking buy, or like sell my product. And, that's just what it is. What you need to try to do is you got to kind of build a story in different ways. And so how I did this is we use sales-based emails coming from our sales team from their actual inbox to help kind of build this momentum. And then we coupled that with marketing emails that were going out once a week, but we were asking the same thing 5-6 different ways. So it didn't seem like it was being annoying. And so the idea is that you got to find a combination of both. So let's talk about the sales piece. And so this is not just like a sales email that Tom wrote. This is a pre-planned sales email based off of how the lead came in and what their interest is and where they probably dropped off, so that sales-based email makes sense. And then those are going out at a drip, because if you're bringing in high volume leads, you may not be able to send emails to every single one of these. And then those create hand raisers. So then the sales team now can focus on the hand raisers for the people that basically responded to an email, or said like, yeah, I'm interested, or responded to a text message, because we tied it with SMS and emails. And so what we did is we compressed the sales cycle, and we kind of pushed everybody to where like, all right, let's see if we can convert more hand raisers and see what happens. And so an example is that we were able to close deals within, 50% of our deals were getting closed within 7 days, because we compressed the sales cycle in those emails. So in those first 7 days, we built urgency, okay, where we were really trying to get people to raise their hands and kind of call themselves out, that top 4%, that top 10% of that are current buyers. And then if nothing happened, then we would kind of nurture them and indoctrinate them, but they were still sales-based emails. So they weren't really pushing for a meeting. It was just kind of like dripping some stuff. In the meantime, we also had these marketing emails going out. Some of them were indoctrination emails that kind of let them know a little bit more about what we do and how we do things. Others are like, let's focus on one area so you understand more of the big picture. And then eventually they would be getting their weekly nurture emails that they got on Sundays, or on Saturdays is whenever we would send them. And these weekly nurture emails were saying like, hey, look, this is what we did last week. Hey, look, this is what one of our customers said about us. Hey, look, this is what's going on, next month. But we weren't selling, we were just sharing stuff. And so that's part of the piece of it. So after, on the sales side, after those leads maybe, don't convert after 30 days, they would get recycled naturally. So then what would happen is we had a workflow, and then that person would get redistributed to a new salesperson. And that salesperson had basically new leads coming from a different person saying, hey, did you ever buy this? Did you ever get this thing done? And then it strikes a new conversation. And so now that is creating these conversations with these new people. And so now all of a sudden, like, we have this pipeline that's always getting recycled to the different sales team. So it doesn't matter if it's a new lead or an old lead, but they're getting recycled, just kind of part of the process. And then we've got these marketing emails that are kind of doing the same thing, where they're kind of engaging and sharing things. And so what happens is that we have kind of like two tails that we're building. We've got something that we know we're going to convert within the first 7 days. And then we've got that we know something that's going to convert 30, 60, 90 days from now, but it's already done. And so this allows us to kind of customize that journey. Those sales emails, they were all kind of customized based off of how they dropped off on the actual buying process, so that you didn't talk to everybody the same way. If you dropped off at the payment page, you have a different conversation than if you dropped off after you put your information on the opt-in form, on the opt-in form. So like those conversations, those deals are different. So you got to approach them a little differently. So that's kind of one way what we approached it as well too. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I looked at lifecycle marketing, is that it's not just a marketing email, it's both sales and marketing, and really leveraging kind of both platforms, if you will.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. What do you think about all that, Taja?
No, I love that. I love the fact of using the dual team dynamic, to still keep that engagement, even when they've dropped off of what was that first 7 days. I love the compression. I mean, that if you can get that to happen in a quicker sales cycle, the stronger you are, and that makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I'm encouraged about, and perhaps Javier, you can speak a little bit more on this, is how to also bring value in the midst of those communications, right? That keeps them engaged and saying, okay, I really do like what they are talking about or offering, right? Like it's that one little tidbit you can give them, that little carrot that demonstrates that, you will bring value to them and their pain point.
Yeah. I mean, how the way I've always looked at this is that sales, if they come at it from a different angle, it's gonna have a different tone. And so you want to make sure you're talking about those things that are important from a sales conversation that adds value to the buyer. Marketing can come from another angle that can add a little bit more of that fluff, that make them feel good kind of thing. And that's another way of how I've kind of looked at it, is like, if we approach sales at the beginning more very hard, kind of like direct response, which I think is an amazing strategy to use, then that's going to give you some immediate action, okay? And then after that, if you approach it more of like a nurture or an indoctrination, that feels a little bit softer. It feels like, okay, you're meeting me where I'm at, all right? And then, on the marketing side, it's more about telling the story in different ways. I mean, that's the hardest thing about marketing, is that you've got to say the same thing like 100 different ways. That is the hardest thing, is like, how do you say the same thing to buy one product or one service 100 different ways? And if you're able to figure that out, all of a sudden it doesn't seem like you're being annoying. It just means that you're being helpful. I remember we had a lead that converted. This is when when I was working in-house, we were selling vehicle graphics. So wraps on a car. So to give you an idea, like, this person came in, like, they're in our pipeline for a year, and they converted on an email that was a Halloween email. Okay. You're like, okay, Halloween. Okay. What did you do? We were kind of like joking about wrapping your car for Halloween, because every car should have a costume. So every person has a costume, obviously, for Halloween. So your car should have a costume. We have some examples of people that wrap their vehicles in a Halloween costume, quote unquote, if you will. We had a lead convert and buy a full wrap for like $5,500. No one ever talked to them, ever. They saw emails from us. They clicked on them, but they never did anything. But what happened is that person was getting touched in different ways, and we were being strategic about it. And so eventually there was that one email that triggered them. I don't know if it was because of the Halloween email, but it clearly made them actually click a button and make a purchase, because it's a $5,500 credit card transaction. Like, this person didn't talk to sales. Like, they literally just clicked on the link and bought right there. So it's just how you approach it a little differently, and know that you're playing for the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's important to know that the consumption, especially in today's modern world, we're over consuming information. Yes. It comes to us from all different angles, right? So you have to, I'm glad you said that, Javier, be able to come with the same topic of discussion in multiple different ways. I will use this analogy, having come from the media space. In radio, oftentimes you'll hear a song that's played probably every hour on the hour. And it's intentional that happens, because in most of the listeners' minds, they probably haven't heard that song as frequently as those who are in the moment or in the business, right? It probably takes them well past 3 to 4 weeks before they identify the song and say, oh, I really like that new song. Well, that's not new to those who have been in the business, because we've heard it now ad nauseum. But that's because you're so intimately close to it, right? Yeah. So we have to. You have to break through what is an ongoing information cycle.
Yeah, I love it. Great story there. I love it.
Yeah, this has been a great topic. We do need to wrap it up. Javier, any actionable advice you could give in a couple sentences to wrap this topic up?
I would say the first one, and probably the easiest one, is build in public. I say this quite a bit, but if you're a founder, if you're a CEO, build in public. Tell your wins, like on a WinsDay, and also tell your losses. Okay. When you build in public, people want to join into that. It's like someone that found that one band that was, just kind of like playing in a garage band, and then you follow them until they broke through. It's the same kind of experience. You're that person that found them. That's what people want to experience when they found your product or service.
Yes, and since you said that, I have to mention Adam Robinson, because he does this so well. He's the founder, CEO of B2B, and he literally posted his P&L on LinkedIn. Like, he just puts it all out there, and he bootstrapped a business to 7 figures. I don't know exactly what it is now, but yeah, I mean, he just puts it all out there, and that's how he did it. But anyway, we got to get into our next segment for Guru of the Week. So Layla, can you play that video for us?
The Guru of the Week. Ooh, ooh. The Guru of the Week. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, so for 300 plus episodes, I sang Guru of the Week. We finally have a video of it. But could you both please tell us your Guru of the Week?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to my guru of the week, affectionately known as JG, but Jonathan Gravis Marketing team. He is my guru of the week. I've known Jonathan for a very long time. He is a solid marketer, sales savant, and he would be my guru of the week.
I would give my guru of the week to Mel Bell. I've had a couple of conversations with her, actual interaction. We are both we are both graduates from the University of Colorado, so that kind of brings us together. She runs a fractional company, also known as Grit Marketing Company, and we tend to kind of feed off of each other. When we're posting something that's a little controversial, she'll say something, that kind of like trigger some other folks. I'll do the same thing, but it's a great way of kind of supporting each other. So she's just a great marketer in general, and overall, I think a really great human being.
Amazing. Well, everybody should go follow those people. Tag them in the comments. We've got Jonathan, Mel. Go make some new connections. And then finally, we do really want to know a little bit more about you before we get off here. So could you both just tell us a little bit more about who it is you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you? Taja?
Yeah, so who it is that we serve at OpsIQ is that growth-minded founder that is saying, hey, what's gotten me here won't get me to the next level. I need to figure out structure. I need to get clarity with this team so that we can continuously successfully deliver our goods and services. So the reason why they come to us is that we help them with that structure in both resources of documentation, SOPs, definitely is in there. But then also we have a curated suite of C-suite of advisors that help them along the way. Everything from legal to finance, HR, sales and marketing, all within that platform, engaging with them in various events throughout the month. And so the way that you can find us, obviously, is on LinkedIn. You absolutely, I'd love to have you to connect with me on LinkedIn, but then OpsIQ does have a LinkedIn page, or visit us at opsiq.biz.
Thank you, Taja. I really appreciate that. And how about you, Javier?
So I focus on working with B2B tech founders or tech-enabled services that are founders or very CEO kind of led, where they're probably about $1 million to $15 million, maybe slightly more, depending on where they're at, and they don't have a foundation. They don't have a floor that they can build off of, and they're trying to build that sales and marketing alignment. They don't really have that predictable pipeline, and they're needing a little help in those areas. And so I come in as a fractional CMO, and I start helping the team build out that foundation accordingly so that we can start creating more predictable pipeline. We have some engines that are running on a regular basis so that if they're ready to do a Series A funding, they have things to go to their, to their investors and say like, hey, this is what we're doing so far. And something that I tell all the founders, and they love this, is that my goal is to work myself out of a job. So what I want to do is I want to be able to build the foundation, build the strategy, and then help you execute this as well too. So I'll actually get in there and roll my sleeves up and then make sure that we have this thing running, and then we can either bring resources to continue this thing running, or we can hire somebody, and then from there give them the keys and they have a fully operating system that's running and making revenue for their team. And they can easily find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. You can look for me on there, Javier Lozano Jr. I'm probably the only Javier Lozano Jr., but if you find somebody else, I'd be interested to know who they are. You can also go to my website, bouldermediasolutions.com.
Incredible. Well, thank you both so much for sharing. I really appreciate that, and really appreciate both of you coming on the show. We've got another really great episode planned for next week. Can we get their pictures up? Yeah, we've got Siva and we've got Gal. So this is going to be another one. So we've got 2 more CEOs coming on. So tune in next week. It's going to be April Fool's Day. I can't believe April's already around the corner. Like, where did January even go? Anyway, this has been a really great episode. I know it's late on the East Coast. It's even late here on the Pacific Coast. So thanks for tuning in. Everyone who's watching, thanks for tuning in. Please leave us a comment. Let us know if you've been tuning in. Give us a goodbye. Give us a hand wave. I see some numbers. I see you're there. But we've got a lot of lurkers out there. So leave a comment. Let us know you're there. But Taja, Javier, this has been an excellent episode. Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and close this out.